question for today is, what does it mean to be multidimensional? What is this term that's being bandied about in new paradigm circles? Multidimensionality. Well, first we have to understand that we live in a world that we call the third dimension, and we're very conditioned to see the world in a limited way. We see a table, we see a tree, and we've been conditioned, this is a table, this is a tree. And we perceive it via the filter of our conditioning, which is very stringent. We have a very limited definition of what it means to be human and exist in the third dimension. But there are an infinite number of dimensions that intersect and overlap the third dimension. And humans have the bandwidth to perceive many, many dimensions, if indeed they can alleviate this stringent conditioning that they've received and open themselves up to the possibility. So then I guess the question arises, why does it matter? Why would one want to be more multidimensional? And the short answer is because you are able to navigate the third dimension more successfully. Let me see if I can break that down into a few more understandable components. In the first place, you can just see, you can open your third eye and perceive what is going on in multiple dimensions. And that's very useful. I mean, it's a serious amount of fun to be able to do that. But it's also useful because if there's someone that might benefit you in some way, that has benevolent intentions toward you, it behooves us to be able to recognize that. If there's someone that has malevolent intentions, it also behooves us to recognize that. So it's just a matter of being able to perceive what is going on underneath the hood, so to speak. And the second thing is to be able to scan. So let's say I want to set an intention to do something. I can scan the dimensions to see what would be the most fruitful avenue to take in order to accomplish that. I can scan through various dimensions, and my body will know how to utilize those dimensions and create a pathway to success. And the third point is, once we decide we're ready to take action, those actions are empowered if we are multidimensional. So if I decide I want to give a teleconference or do a YouTube audio, then I can see the way to do it. I can see or feel, might be a better word. I can feel the people that I will reach. I can feel how that audio should be constructed. I can feel what needs to be said. I can feel in advance what the responses will be. I can run my attention out through a timeline and implement something via that timeline with far more power. And when we say power, we don't mean force as it was defined in the patriarchy. We don't mean power over. We just mean being able to access the energy of source, of the divine, and allow that to come through us. So my teacher in This and Other Lives, Rama, taught his students to be multidimensional. And the way he did it was by taking his students out to the Anza Borrego Desert in Southern California and opening up the dimensions. He would stop every once in a while and say, in the last hour, I've just taken you through 100 dimensions. And that's the way you learn. You learn to be multidimensional by literally associating with, by hanging out with somebody who is multidimensional. It's not something that you learn intellectually. It's not something you can analyze. It's not something you get from reading a book. You learn it purely via association. And it's sort of like this. If you want to take a trip to New York, it's very helpful if you know somebody who lives in New York, if you have a friend who can show you around. And then the next time you go to New York, you don't need your friend because you've already been there. There's a certain comfort level. You can go back and explore New York on your own. And it's exactly the same with dimensions. Once somebody takes you to a dimension via association, you know intuitively how to get back there. You begin to be able to access it automatically. And you begin to build your repertoire, you might say, of dimensions. You become more multidimensional. It's an absolutely fascinating subject, and most people on the planet have access to only a handful of dimensions. They tap into them by accident, or when something happens that they have to call forth, pull together their power, like their child is in an accident and suddenly they have to pick the child up and run, a half a mile to the hospital. They manage to access another dimension. Or maybe they sit and they watch a sunset and suddenly a dimension opens and they can see the eternality of life. But it's haphazard. And drugs also open up the dimensions for people, but they do so in a way that is not reliable. When you take a drug, the being is shattered, basically, in its current formation, in its current structure. Then the being reformats, but after taking a drug, it may not reformat in an optimal way. If you access dimensions via meditation and processing and sitting with a mentor who is multidimensional, this is the safest way to learn to become multidimensional, because then you're working with the energy of Source, and Source always comes in and reformats you in the most optimal way. So I'm going to explore multidimensionality in a series of teleconferences in the latter part of 2014. I'm calling the series Multidimensionality for Mystics. And what we will discuss on the call will really be an excuse for getting together and transferring dimensions to the people who attend. Actually, what we discuss will be a way of occupying the mind, the intellect, while the real work takes place via the association in the teleconference. From my side, all I have to do is intend to open up dimensionality for the people who come. And then it comes through, because obviously it's not something I can do. It's not something a mentor, a person can do. It comes through the person. The person can facilitate opening up the dimensions. It's Source that opens up the dimensions and comes through to the participants and helps them to evolve a mindset in which they are better able to navigate the third dimension. It's magic. So I'm really excited about doing this series. It's new for me. I know that I know how to do it. I know that my awareness field is extremely multifractaled, extremely multidimensional, that I have access via association with my teacher for 17 years to many, many dimensions. And I'm looking forward to bringing those through on the call. Perhaps you'll consider joining us.